Hello, I'm Tony and I'm a teacher at Simul Academy, and this is the third in our Vocabulary in the News series. If you haven't already watched the first two videos, please do, as some of the techniques we cover in those videos will be useful in this one. So let's try what we're going to do today, and we're going to focus on retention and reproduction. So retention is remembering and storing the information that you've heard and being ready to use it again. So when you're trying to retain information, which is very difficult in a foreign language, as you tend to focus on the next point, listen for the vocabulary and try to pick up and identify the key vocabulary items and also the relationships between them, i.e. any collocations or prepositions. And listen for the structure. So try to recognize the basic structure of the sentences, the subject, verb, object, or other information, and any related clauses. And finally, aim for coherence. So focus on the overall message in the sentence. Don't be distracted by minor points that you didn't quite catch or couldn't understand fully. The second part is reproduction. So this is reproducing accurately what you heard. And when you are reproducing, if you can reuse the vocabulary from the original, then do. But if you want to, you can paraphrase words in the sentence with other words that you are more comfortable using, as long as you don't change the message in the sentence. And similarly, you can reorganize parts of the sentence to make it into a simpler structure, or you can divide it into smaller chunks for ease and clarity. And finally, again, focus on making a clear grammatical sentence, something which is coherent and people can understand, rather than trying to copy the original sentence exactly. So let's look at the information we're going to be dealing with today. And we'll be looking at 3 news stories from the end of 2022. I'll share the headline for the first story. See if you can remember the missing part to complete this headline.
New Zealand bans cigarettes for future generations.
Do you remember this story? Let's listen to the whole story. First of all, listen and take notes, and then later I'll show you the whole story and you can read it. Feel free to pause the video or repeat if you want to listen to it again.
New Zealand's parliament has passed a law banning anyone born after 2008 from ever buying cigarettes or tobacco products. The legislation does not cover vape products, which have been growing in popularity. Only 8% of adults in New Zealand smoke, although the rate for Maori citizens is around 20%. New Zealand's parliament has passed a law banning anyone born after 2008 from ever buying cigarettes or tobacco products. The legislation does not cover vape products, which have been growing in popularity. Only 8% of adults in New Zealand smoke, although the rate for Maori citizens is around 20%.
Take a minute to read through the story again and focus on remembering some of the vocabulary, trying to remember the structure, particularly of the first 2 sentences. So we're going to work on reproducing those in a moment. I'll share some key words from those first 2 sentences with you. try to reproduce the information in these sentences as accurately as you can. Have a look at two possible paraphrases of the sentences. Although there may be different possibilities, this isn't the only way you can do it. As you can see, the sentences are not exactly the same as the original, but the information is clearly stated in a coherent way. So that's what we're aiming for. Let's try the same thing with two more news stories. So we'll follow the same procedure and pause if you need more time to do any of the activities.
India is set to overtake China in the size of its population. India is set to overtake China in the size of its population. China's population has shrunk for the first time in 60 years, a decline many blame on its abandoned one-child policy. This means India will soon overtake China to become the world's most populous country. However, to benefit from its demographic dividend, India must rapidly create jobs for its young, working-age population. China's population has shrunk for the first time in 60 years, a decline many blame on its abandoned one-child policy. This means India will soon overtake China to become the world's most populous country. However, to benefit from its demographic dividend, India must rapidly create jobs for its young, working-age population.
COP15 30 by 30 deal sets 2030 target to protect 30% of nature. COP15 30 by 30 deal sets 2030 target to protect 30% of nature. Nations at COP15 agreed to set aside a third of the planet for nature by 2030. The UN summit also created goals to halt and reverse biodiversity loss, safeguard vital ecosystems such as rainforests, and guarantee the rights of indigenous peoples. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called the deal a peace pact with nature. Nations at COP15 agreed to set aside a third of the planet for nature by 2030. The UN summit also created goals to halt and reverse biodiversity loss, safeguard vital ecosystems such as rainforests, and guarantee the rights of indigenous peoples. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called the deal a peace pact with nature.
How did you get on with those? Let's have a final quick test of your retention and look at the last 3 sentences from those stories. So I'll show you the first part of the sentence. See if you can remember and reproduce the second part. Here they come. Did you manage to retain that information and could you reproduce it? So this is something which takes a lot of practice. So that's the end of today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be putting out more content again soon, so please keep watching. Thank you very much and goodbye.